Just want to have a wee chat today about invisible illnesses, invisible disabilities. This is something that came up recently. I mean, it comes up in everyday life if you're a spoonie, um, especially if you're a spoonie with invisible disabilities. But it came up recently during graduation. So I'm using graduation as an example because one, a lot of stuff did come up on that day, and two, I graduated. So it's nice to acknowledge that. So things that came up during was, so I had a friend go with me. She was like, I chose her to be my only guest, and she also was there to support me. So to start off, that's one of the other reasons. So even just why I only chose one guest. So of course I wanted all my kids there. They're grown and I wanted them there, but the fatigue that I experience to have them there, it would have been more of a stress for me to organise getting them there. I would have to pick them up, drop them off, some of them. I'd be worried about, if they were comfortable being there because they've got some health issues and some things going on as well. So I needed the energy to just be focused on getting there. And even getting myself there was a big deal with the energy. I mean, even just thinking about going and being in the hall and going across the stage, even just thinking about that in advance I was like, I don't have the energy for it. I really don't have the energy for it. But I did do it and I'm glad I did. So yeah, I decided to have one friend there with me who would support me as well, because she picked me up. She would be dropping me home. She would make sure that, we would park close enough, that going and getting the gown and the robe, like she would deal with all that stuff. I know, she's one in a million. But I knew that she would, take a lot of the strain off me, so that really all I had to do was get across the stage. So we did go, we turned up. The parking was not right outside the hall. There was the option to be dropped there, but I did not want to be left on my own, so we had to park a little bit away and just walk down to the hall. Once we got there, we then had to go down lots of stairs to get to where the robe was. So that was a bit, going downstairs, it still hurts my knee, like, because I have arthritis as well as other things. But going back up the stairs I wouldn't have been able to do it. So luckily, once we got down the stairs, we discovered that there was a lift that would take us up and down. So that was good. When we get in there, I first met with the woman who was helping people. For instance, I was going to be sitting at the back of the hall rather than sit with everyone else during the graduation ceremony, because I may have needed help to get up off my seat, and didn't want to be sitting anxious as well, and amongst other people who I didn't even recognise. There was only, I think, 2 other people who were graduating alongside me with a PhD, and I didn't recognise them because chronic illness, I've pretty much worked, I finished it at home. So the woman, she was really helpful, and when we were speaking, she was kind of looking at me like, so she first of all said, oh, the person you spoke to on the phone said that you would have crutches. And I was like, no, I won't have crutches. I says, I did say that I might have my stick or I may have my walker. It would all depend on the day. I says, but I've come with nothing, like, because I can sit at the back of the hall. I'm fine today. My arthritis isn't flaring, but I cannot be standing too long because my energy will drop like instantly. It could just drop just standing waiting in a queue to go on stage. So that was taken into consideration. But there's definitely some, like, there's a pause when, even with people there, there's a pause where, but you can walk. But she was really good as well. And I said, like, even the steepness of the slope, I said, if I even, if I even carry a bag that adds that tiny little bit extra body weight to me, my lungs struggle. If I'm going up a slope, my lungs struggle, and the weakness in my muscles. So she actually allowed me to try out the ramp, and it was it was a very, it wasn't very steep, so that was great. And there was handrails at each side, so that was great to know that. But even when we were like, so once we left the hall before the ceremony started, we were going and getting stuff and getting organised. Even using the lift, people were like, excuse me, come back, there's a queue for people to go down in the hall. And we were like, oh, we're using the lift. And then you get that look like you're using the lift. Like, why are you using a lift? You don't have a buggy, you don't have a wheelchair. So I very much felt like I've felt in other occasions, I very much felt like I wish I had my stick. Like it's the same when you use, well, I know that I feel this, I'm sure many others do, but when you use like the accessible toilets in places, sometimes I feel more comfortable doing that when I have my stick or I have my walker. Otherwise, people think, oh, you shouldn't be using that, Lou. That's for disabled people. So I very much get that. And it's the same with the blue badge. I have a blue badge, which allows me, so I live in Scotland, and the blue badge allows me to put it on my car and I can park in an accessible parking spot, which is great, closer to the shops, anywhere, because one, I do need that wide space to get in and out the car because of my muscle weakness and the pain that I can be in. And two, because if I'm having to walk too far, if the cold air gets into my lungs, all this kind of stuff. So, and I know people have had issues with blue badges before. I haven't so far, and I don't think I would be shy in telling people if they were to be causing a real fuss. But I've heard some people have had real problems with people coming up to them saying that they shouldn't be parked in an accessible parking spot because they can walk, basically. So that came up. So these kind of things come up during graduation, but it's just that real issue of invisible disabilities. Even just getting ready to go to graduation, like the energy was, the spoon theory, the spoons were being used, just getting ready. But I did do it. I did get there. I went across the stage and we came back and sat at the back of the hall again, and then went to the little reception. But again, there was not very many seats available, so didn't stay there long. And then the other thing that graduation brought up in terms of invisible disabilities is just the fact that I have graduated now and I'm not doing the job that I wanted to do. So it really brings up this real issue of, I'm really stuck in a benefit trap. So the aim with going to uni was always to change my life. It was always to have a different future that was, I suppose, written for me. So I really wanted to change that, and I wanted to work in academia. I wanted to lecture and, do all that good stuff. Well, these days, is it really good stuff? That's another debate. But, that's what I wanted to do. And then now I'm not doing anything. I'm not working. And one of the main reasons is that it took so long to get benefits. So I receive universal credit and I receive PIP, personal independence payment. Now, these things took so long to get when I first became ill. So it took months and months and months. So there was a long time where, I really had very little money at all, which was a struggle. But I know that I'm not ready to work full time, and that's the problem. There were some days where I'm like, oh, I can see a future. I can maybe start trying to find a job that maybe I could do from home. There's no way I could go full into academia again. The stress of it and would just flare off more immune conditions, and stress makes my conditions worse. You know, I'm not physically fit to stand and give a lecture or be traipsing about campuses and stuff. So I know that I'm not fit for that. I also know that, and I wake when I need to wake. So I still wake fairly early some days. Like most days I'm up fairly early, but if I was to wake on an alarm like I used to, and I'd get up crazy early and then drive and travel and go and get to the place of work, I would absolutely be on the floor. So even if there comes a time where I'm like, okay, maybe I can try and do some kind of work, my fear is, and that's the difficulty with the benefit trap, if I then go and try and work and then it doesn't work for me, like, and I get really ill again, like it flares everything off, then I'm back to square one, and I'm back to like zero money until the months and months and months it takes to try and get back to receive these benefits. So it's such a dilemma, and that's a really hard one. So even I'm always in at the doctor's getting bloods done, and every time you go in, the nurse will say, "Oh, are you working today then?" And it's that feeling of like, "Oh, no, I'm not." So I tend to just say, "Not today." The dentist asked me as well, so you're working today? You get the day off for the dentist? And I was like, "Not today." And it used to help while I was still doing my PhD, because I could say, "Oh, I'm just finishing off my PhD." But it's that real, it does not make you feel good when people ask that. So I've decided that since I've been a young kid, I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to publish books. I've always wanted to be a writer. And being at university did help with that. I was forever writing essays. I was writing up my research. So that kind of fulfilled that need a bit. Excuse me. So I've decided I am going to put my energy that I do have, work at my own schedule, and work on a book proposal, and see if I can start this next goal, because then I can work to my own routine, my own energies, and get this done, because I do have other stuff going on. I have a mum with dementia. I still have my kids. I'm still trying to run a house while still being very ill. So that's the goal. The next goal is to get a book published. And voluntary. So one of my supervisors we're applying for me to be an honorary research fellow, which means, I can just do little bits of work on a project free, but that's just the position I'm in. But it allows me to keep in with some of my interests. So yeah, invisible disabilities. Don't judge a book by its cover. So I'm off today to see my mum and take her to pick up a duvet that she handed into a laundrette to get washed. They charge her 30 quid. 30 quid. I was like, you could have bought 2 new duvets. Anyway, whatever you do today, I hope you get to do something fun.